going to talk about digital twins today, and especially digital twins for sustainable cities. And I'm working at RISE Research Institute, and we have had this kind of internal collaboration around digital twin for almost 3 years now. I mean, we have a lot of different competences in different areas, and this kind of topic, digital twins, is kind of transcending most areas, basically. So this has been really fun to dig into this area and try to understand what it is and what it could be in the future and so on. So, I mean, the first question obviously is, what is a digital twin? And there will be some Swedish and some English kind of mixed, but if you don't understand the Swedish, just listen to what I'm saying. So, I mean, this is kind of a tricky thing to establish. There's a lot of definitions there. It's been kind of a bit skepticism around it being like a suitcase word that you can basically put anything into it. There's some kind of history. I mean, it was inspired by the NASA's program, where they use a lot of simulators and equipment to try to prepare the astronauts. Also, they always kept like a copy of the space shuttle that they send out. So if there was trouble up there in space, they could troubleshoot back on Earth and then send the instructions up, so they didn't have to test everything up there when the situation was quite kind of critical. Problem they had with Apollo 13 was that it actually exploded, if you've seen the movie, and that kind of left the copy on Earth quite a bit different from the one that was in space. So when they were driving it, the kind of weight adjustments, so everything was completely different. You know, the system, a lot of systems were gone and so on. I mean, in this day, first when they received this information, they actually thought it was a sensor error, or they couldn't get the kind of overall situational awareness of what was going on there. This is not live real footage, it's actually from the movie. But for me, I think like digital twin is when we put a lot of different data together and create something that is more than its components. In this case, I made a video of cooking porridge, and then I collected the temperature data, and then I made a web browser kind of thing that you could actually go through the movie and see what temperature, so the temperature curve and the movie are kind of aligned. So by combining two different data sources, we can get more insights into the art of cooking porridge, which is, you know, all about not burning on the bottom. And you can see also when you whip here that the temperature goes down from the temperature sensor. It's actually, you even out the temperature when you do the whipping, sort of. So, I mean, that was a kind of maybe a strange example, but digital twins, I mean, the definitions out there, they usually talk about sensor data, the connection to real-time data, that the twin would react to the real environment automatically in some way. But also like a lot of simulations, and we always need models in there as well. And typically it's really hard to 3D scan a city in real time, so some data will always be delayed, like updated from time to time and so on. In reality, we have this problem as well. We tend to put data in a lot of different kind of systems and formats, so there's like really a big trouble of unifying them all into one. But if we succeed in this, it will actually be something that's really needed right now. Like, how do we go from data? A lot of data is collected. It's not used that much, and how do we go from turning that data into some actual wisdom or insights into city planning or whatever. So I mean, digital twins were really good in terms of space, because there's a low bandwidth between the people on Earth and in space, and it's really remote and tricky. And it's also good, like this was a sawmill where there's a lot of logs and things happening, and they need to have some kind of overview of it. But also when planning cities, when you're sitting in an office in a meeting room, and the distance here is both like on scale, but also in terms of time, you know, the city will be maybe around for several hundred years after you make your decisions and so on. Okay, so I mean, there's a lot of talk about digital twins, where I think, few examples of actual digital twins regarding to smart cities. And especially then I'm thinking of the ones that target sustainability. I mean, there's a lot of examples in China now, but it's mostly for surveilling people and so on. And I mean, it's a topic that needs to be explored a bit. And when you explore things, we really like this prototype-based approach that we actually build stuff and let people test them. There is some research done, but this guy which says that if you have strategies, digital strategies in municipalities, actually makes things worse. It's much better if you experiment a lot more. And when you do build prototypes, a lot of people which is closer to the kind of real business that they're doing, the teachers or the whatever, you know, get to say their things, and that actually makes it so much better. So whenever there's new kind of practices, like digital twin could be seen as some new way for us to handle data information and plan and so on. It's not only about technologies, also it's also about like the ideas we have around it and this the kind of skills we have in actually being able to use this kind of new technologies. So we've been looking into sustainability for cities and societies. We do a lot of prototyping, and I wrote 4D cluster. It's actually we do 3D maps and then we put on a timeline so you can move the time forth and back. So I'll just show you sample here. And I mean, this is like all the prototypes, we're trying to merge them together now and trying to find out some kind of common things that would point out the direction in the future. And this first project, it was not so much with real-time sensors. It was a project that we did with Stockholm City about traffic situation in Stockholm and in the future and so on. I'll just show you a really brief thing about it here. It's like you have Excel files and you can load this that we load now is the emissions by cars, and it's like it's so-called DESO areas. It's statistical areas, which are the smallest one you can get from the SEB. And we also have this function that you can make bookmarks. So actually here we can make a bookmark that allows us to see Royal Seaport, how it changed the emissions from car when people started moving in there. And we can, the bookmark system works so that you can set the view, you can load the data, and then you can do a bookmark. And then it will set you in the same view once you hit that bookmark. So it's kind of like a presentation tool that you can actually share then. And this we did a thing with Kista, and I mean, we wanted to become a little bit more alive. So we put some traffic and we put some birds there to fly around and things like that. And the next question was then, how do we get this traffic to actually behave like the real traffic? Now it's just like in the future, so even if it's night there, you thought that the cars were driving the same. So now we have a student which is looking into how to use the images from the traffic camera and actually start storing historical data about how the cars behave. And then this could then be used to set the traffic accordingly. So here we also have like a timeline on the buildings that are going to be built in Kista over the next year. Some of them are really like in a advanced development state, so they know exactly how they're going to look, and some of them are more like boxes. But one of the problems here is that Ericsson's big parking lot there is going to be removed. So this will be a problem for where all the cars will go. So you also saw there was a small sensor there. It's actually a sensor that measures the number of cars going in and out of our parking space in the building that I have, that our office are in. So, I mean, this could be used to figure out some things about what happens when we remove those parking lots. Which time of the day there will be a problem? How much of the traffic can we fit into the existing parking places and so on? So in this case, you also saw some sensor data there from the Urban ICT Arena project. They have like different sensors for smart waste bins and air quality and so on. This is just something we stole from another example that I might show you at the end. Is like the sea race on Gotland. But I mean, we wanted to look into stormwater management here in Kista. We have colleagues who does that in a very like detailed way. So this was just a way to put something in here that would resemble what we could end up with one day. I mean, it's really good for finding the low points, but this is how we kind of work. We sheet a lot. We put stuff in there just to get people to envision things in their mind, and then we can go from there. Because I mean, right now, digital twins, I think a really important part is just understanding what is going to be used and how it's going to be used. So you can see here is also areas. So we had deso areas. In the first example, we had like real estate areas, and here we have like different rooms and things. So and in this case, actually now we highlighted the electrical area where the electric meter is measuring. So I mean, when you have sensor data, we need to connect it to something, some kind of logical thing. So in this case, if this room area, we have a counter that counts the people going in and out of this room, it needs to be attached to some kind of ID of this room then, and we can start storing and aggregating data around the different rooms. We have an AI camera there as well, as you saw, that kind of counts the number of people in the room. And also you saw there were some temperature sensors and stuff. So also it's like if you're going to calculate the average temperature of a floor plan, you need to consider how big the rooms are. If you have like a small half square meter room with which is 30 degrees because you have some electrical equipment in there, it shouldn't be that one determining what the average temperature of the room is. So here you can see the yearly rental cost of this particular room, and our idea is to make new kind of key performance indicators. So like how much cost per hour that we work in this room is there, and how much energy per work hour do we have instead of energy per square meter. So that is so on 15th of November we will be ready with this project, and then it will actually be that we can look into these key performance indicators and start going forth and back in time. So I mean, if you have some ideas for fun prototyping around digital twins, please feel free to contact us. I will just talk now a little bit more about, I mean, what you saw there. One thing with digital twin is like the ability to collaborate. And in the first project, we have this kind of idea that we have a data producers that creates those Excel files, or I mean, if it's real-time data, you need to set up the data aggregation for those. Then you have kind of some people digging into the data and finding the interesting stories there. And the third would be like after you produce those kind of presentations, you have some kind of audience. Could be a meeting at the municipality or whatever. So the question for that project was very much about how do we get people to use data in their decision making in their workplaces. And then we talk about how to find the kind of general stuff here. So you saw there was a lot of surfaces, data projection surfaces, and there was a timeline, and there was the storytelling. I think this is just some example of when we use this. I mean, this could be like a collaborative tool, of course. I mean, in the case of the Stockholm City project, where it was actually online, so you could share those presentations as a URL link. This is something that is a bit tricky. If you think of data as being like these connected nodes that you sometimes see, people use them for flashy visualizations or in presentations. But if you dig into the idea about these connected nodes and data, it's actually like you have a lot of sensor data coming in, but you need to name them so that you have unique names and can find those sensors. But the sensors themselves doesn't make it you any happier unless you have like a semantics layer. So in this semantics layer, it could be like my house, my upper floor, my bedroom, my hallway. It could be like there's one sensor device, a temperature sensor maybe in my hallway, but it was moved. So it used to be in the bedroom before. So in that case, it's like we also have an application layer. There we have scenes, we have layers, and then I mean one layer might be the temperature of my house, and then we can see the hallway as a unit. So how do we calculate the temperature in the hallway? Then we need to go back to the semantic network, find the hallway, see what year is it now? Is it 2022 or 21? I mean, if we go back in time, we might want to look at the 2021. Then there's no temperature sensor there in the hallway. But if we look at 2022, we can see the sensor device, and then we can find where this data source of that is, and we can start seeing the data from that period. I mean, the semantics data is one of the huge challenges. I mean, there might be BIM kind of models of a building, but usually when you look at BIM models as well, they're very different from different buildings. There's a lot of manual work going into fixing the semantics layer, and a lot of people that work with AI at our place, they say they spend about 80–90% of the time just making sure that the data is of good quality, finding out where the actual data is coming from. We had some problems with in Royal Seaport. They have this thing that you have to follow up on your energy use after you've been building the buildings. And in some cases, I mean, you need to distinguish between the electricity used for the kind of business and the electricity used for the real estate. So, and there's kind of regulated rules for how to do that. But in some cases, there was like a Coop store that had been opening in the building, and they were on the wrong meter, so to say. And the information about that, you had to contact the owner of the building. They had an energy controller, which then had used a consultant, and then on his computer screen there was a post-it where this information was noted. So I mean, it's not, you know, really easy to get the semantics information always, and things like that. So yeah, this was temperature examples. If you just calculate the average temperature, if you have a server room or whatever, you will end up with something really strange. And I mean, this could be done in a lot of ways. It could be volumes instead of areas or whatever. So I mean, you know all about how you make histograms. So this is a little bit techy stuff now, and I will just skip through it. I mean, if you sort the people in here in age categories, you will end up with a histogram. It might not look like this. I think I made it for another audience. So I mean, the same thing is like with the road network. Let's split the road and make a bucket out of each piece of road, and then we can start thinking how much car has been passing on this one. So, I mean, ideally in the digital twin, when we do the sweeps forward and back in time, we want to make something that looks like this picture. You know, when you take this long exposure time, and doing that, we need to do all these kind of buckets. And the buckets, some buckets will be like a week, some will be a day, some will be like a month or so. So this data aggregation is going on all the time. Also, it's like we have this AI camera thing. So this is our Stranger Things demo, if you've seen the series. So the camera detects where he is and lights up the lamps above him. It was super fun to do this, but from a practical point of view, it's like you can either like have the rooms and count the number of people in the rooms, but you can also like divide the floor into buckets or areas, and then start counting how many people have been passing this during a certain period of time, or how many minutes have they spent here, or whatever kind of things, if you want to look into how to use some area. And also it's like here, maybe you do one for between starting and 14, one between 14 and 15, and one 15 to now. And then if you want to do a day or a week, you can just add them together and things like that. So these are things going on the backside. Scalability, also like when we zoom out, sometimes we want less data. So I mean, one of these four might be turned into one, you know, when we zoom out, and this is Eskilstuna map, and it's like, it's very detailed photogrammetric map that they did from a lot of drone scans or from helicopter footage, and once you zoom in, you want the detail to increase, and once you zoom out, you want the detail to decrease, because otherwise your phone would break. Or I mean, these maps could be like 300 gigabytes or more, you know, in size. So usually you need to stream this data. And what they do is they have different versions of the model, different level of detail. So this bunny here is like high detail on one side and really low detail on the side. So I mean, if you put this one, the low detail, far away, you won't see that it's a low detail actually. So at this point, they look the same. And the same with, oh, that one was actually not. Yeah, this is just, I mean, the same applies for sensor data. I mean, if you zoom in on a graph, you know, you want the resolution to change sometimes. And also, this is a classical problem in maps. They do something called quad freeze there, where they divide, when you zoom in, they divide the map into 4 new pictures, and then they load new 4 pictures. And those pictures are roughly the same size, all of them. So and this is, I mean, some idea of how they use quad freeze in simulation just to detect if objects are close to each other. So I mean, there's a process monitoring each box here. If there's 2 of them, then they split the box into 4 other ones, you know, so they can have different details when things get closer to each other. So nowadays you work with something called opt trees. It's the same as quad trees, only that you have 1 more dimension, sort of. And then you can put those kind of models in there, sort of. And this would be like just an example of seeing how they work in real time when they split up the boxes when you come close to the camera and so on. So this is some digital twin kind of backend technology, which is interesting. Yeah, I mean, fluid dynamic simulations, they do the same. They divide their world into boxes, and then they compute stuff around those boxes. So it kind of aligns. Let's see. Yeah, this is just like, wouldn't it be great if all these boxes kind of matched between different systems? Maybe we could have 1 big box around the whole of Sweden, and that one could be divided. Or maybe 1 big box around the globe, and that box gets divided into 8, and then those get into 8 more, and so on, and you can have a unified way of dividing them. So I don't know, how much time do I have left? Should we end there, or should I show you more last video?
Yeah, I think the Gotland is interesting.
Yeah, you like the Gotland. Yeah. So I mean, this was done in a couple of weeks. So I mean, we just took the 3D scan of Gotland, the LiDAR data, and then we put the photographic image on top of it. And it's not the highest resolution; it's really low resolution. They have much higher resolution than this as well. But this was just supposed to be a prototype for a short time, and it was about like how can we use their data that we have to get citizens to understand where you can build and not, you know. So in this case, it's I mean, it's done in our digital twin kind of platform thing that we did, but we kind of took away a little bit of the menus. I mean, it's a really good playground to play around with new kind of services and so on as well. So in this case, we made it as like a mind map. So can you actually build here? And then it says it's a red ring around it. It says no, building is not allowed. And if you go down to the building permit, you see that this is actually in a zone where it's restricted. So the yellow zones you can sometimes build if you're lucky. In the red one, you can definitely not, you know. So I mean, those kind of states of things, they progress up around. I mean, there's other ones as well. I mean, in Gotland, you can't drill if you want to have a thermo, what's it called, heating from the ground, thermo something. Yeah. Then you need to drill, but the salt water goes in layers in Gotland. So sometimes when you drill, the salt water will start running down into the fresh water. So then you're prohibited from actually drilling there. So I mean, if you click on the energy one, and then you click on having that kind of heating, or if you want the solar panels or whatever you want, and then you can set it to like, this is really important for me, or it doesn't matter, or I don't want this. And if you set it to it's really important for you, and you're in a zone where you can't drill, then it will become red and so on. So that was the idea of that project. Yeah, I think I'll end there. Hope you got something out of this.